today I'm here with Mike the Truth Jackson, Houston MMA legend. Really, he's kind of the go-to guy in Houston for MMA. Well connected with the fighters, a fighter himself. Been in the MMA media for a long time. So, Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, man.
Absolutely, man. So I kind of wanted to start, just kind of early on. You have kind of an interesting career as you've attacked both the MMA side from the media side of it and covering MMA and being involved with a lot of young fighters and upcoming fighters, as well as being a fighter yourself. So if you don't mind kind of unwinding that for me and starting kind of at the beginning, how did you get involved with mixed martial arts, as a kid or as a young adult, and just kind of walk me through that?
Yeah, man. So what happened, I grew up as a fan in just combat sports, boxing, pro wrestling. And eventually I found about, fighting. I tell my mother this day, I still joke about it, is that I only became a fighter because she would let me do karate as a kid. I had a cousin who did karate, and I would go to his tournaments and his practices, and I was like, yo, Mom, I want to do that. And she was like, nah, it's too violent or whatever. And then, for me, I was always in traditional sports. First sport I played was baseball. Then it was basketball, then football, tennis, swimming, track a little bit. So I've just always been just an athlete. And then fast forward to college, and just met some people, and it really just fell in my lap. I walked into a gym early 2008, and then I signed up 2000 or April of 2008, and I haven't looked back since. For me, it was just about figuring out the right avenue to take for all of this. It's although I started off fighting, I started off as an amateur fighter. Like, I never had any aspirations to go to the UFC or anything like that. For me, I just fight because I just enjoy the competition. Not even the fighting aspect of it. That's cool, but it's more just the competition and the challenge, the thinking aspect of it. There's this lady that I was training her gym, and it was her gym, but she was never there. And I remember having my first fight, and she got upset about it because we didn't ask for her permission or something. I was like, yo, first of all, I'm an adult. At the time, I think in 2008, I was 23. So I'm 23 years old, and you have this lady basically say, yo, you got to ask for permission to fight. And I was like, what? And this is, again, she wasn't even in the gym. It wasn't like she was there watching me grow. Anyways, I go out there, I win my debut, and then she's like, yo, it was wild because I already heard she was talking about me behind my back to a bunch of people, but I didn't really say nothing about it. Well, after the fight, I'm walking out the cage, yo, Shorty is pushing the security people out. This is way back in the day too, so security's different and everything. Right. But she pushed the dude out the way, yo, that's my student to come hug me. And as she's hugging me, I'm just in my head, I'm thinking, yo, you don't even like me.
Yeah.
So I ended up that. Fast forward past that, she didn't kick me out of her gym, but she said that she wasn't gonna renew my because when all this happened, it was a month left. You sign year contracts. Yeah. I had a month left on the contract. And my dude, who we became really good friends, bestie at the time, she fired him basically for not really the same issue, but kind of. She fired him, and then she told me she wasn't gonna renew my contract. So we were like, all right, we'll just dip. So
right,
we started our own thing. He opened up his own gym. I was teaching boxing, and then during this time, this was right when Dana White's video blogs were kind of getting, those were big. And even then, there was, especially on the local scene, there was nothing as far as coverage.
Right.
And for me, it was right place, right time. I knew the right people, and I ended up going in and I'll tell you about it. So the videos came because I was a fan of the Power Rangers growing up. And Jason David Frank, the original Green Ranger, he lives in Houston. And I remember my boy who we left the gym with, he actually introduced me to him. And I was kind of geeked out for it. So I was like, oh shit, yo, it's Green Ranger.
Right.
And like to this day, me and Jason Frank, like we're still cool.
Mm.
But he was at the time he was making his amateur debut, and so for me, I had this access, right? I had
Right.
K-Fight, I had backstage access, I had all of this access that people didn't have. So I ended up just like shooting a video, like the fight, and and again, I was just shooting kind of for myself, like because I'm a fan of the Green Ranger. And then I threw it up, and this was early YouTube. Again, this is like now this is about 2009, 2000, probably like 2009, I think, 2000, maybe 2010, probably like 2009. And anyway, I threw it up on YouTube, and like to this day, I'm at like, almost like 1 million views. And so, and in the moment, I was like, "Yo, we're on to something." So I do that video. Then I'm checking out the Dana White's blogs. I get this idea to just do my own version of that. Right. And that's really what just like that. Now, it was a slow growth at the time because I think in the moment, people didn't really understand what was going on. But like now, the things I was doing then, like it's common now, actually. Like people have full media teams to do what I was doing alone, or I had like, 1 or 2 people helping me. So I was sort of like the early stages of the content for fight content, I guess. But yeah, man, like that just blew up, and then I had little hiccups, and then photography came, and then I grew up in the photography scene, like a digital camera or a disposable camera I had growing up. Gravitated to digital cameras. And then I realized that I had another gift that I really didn't know I had at the moment. And that took it to the photography took it to a whole nother level, because the videos are cool, but I feel like maybe it could be at the time, I felt that I was limited with what I could do with it. I felt that I could do way more with the photography. And I have, I think it was a right choice to make. And I think now I'm in sort of the next sort of stage in I guess my life, as far as like the media side. I'm handling more like production and doing live streams with commentary and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just, I always have a hustler's mentality. Although I am a huge procrastinator, I think it's probably my biggest flaw. But when I have the motivation to get up and get at it, I do it. And I mean, I created something out of nothing, and I'm able to live my life that way without having like a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome to see, because a lot of times, and whenever there's something going on MMA related, just in general, UFC, Bellator, local scene, you're kind of the first go-to I look at, and it's one, you are local, so I appreciate that outlook, but it's also most of the time in the media, especially, you get guys that can fight and they do fight, or you get guys that can't fight and they're the ones that are usually commentating on it. And you do both. So I think you give an interesting point of view on what fighters go through and that. Now, you brought up an interesting point about being a procrastinator. I kind of have a theory, especially when it comes to a lot of competitive athletes in general. A lot of them are procrastinators, but it's because we have a deadline. It gets us going, right? If you're just saying, I'm going to train for the next 6 years and maybe I'll have a fight, how hard are you going to go? But if I got to fight in 6 weeks, now you start putting it to the grind.
And that's how I am with like just life. And not even about fighting, like life. Like, I'll be honest with you. Like, I know we had like a noon, like, so I laid in bed till 11:55. Well, first, I set my alarm at 11:30. I was like, all right, that'll give me enough time to get up and move around. I got up at 11:30. I looked at the phone. I was like, you know what? Extra 15 minutes. Like, I got a little bit. I like check Twitter, whatever, Instagram. And I was like, just give me like another 15 minutes. And like I said it for 15 minutes, and then I finally got like 11:50, and I laid there for a second. And I was like, oh, you got to go iron your shirt. I was like, oh, shit, all right. That was me. But that's just – it takes, I don't know, like for me, if I have a deadline, then I guess like there's the target goal, I guess. If there is no, like people who ask me to do things and they don't, and they just like, just do it whenever. Like, all right, do it whenever. Like you got to give I need the time. So yeah, it's just I don't know. Like I said, it's my biggest flaw. But even with that flaw, I've accomplished so much. And like I'm one of those people. Like you have people like all right. So you have people who like they have these goals, right? They want to be the best at whatever. Like I don't really want to be like the best at one thing. I just want to be really good at a bunch of shit, right?
Yep.
And because and here's why. Like I understand. Like, I have many friends who, and obviously, I'll take fighting since we're talking about it. But like to compete in the UFC, right? It just about everyone's goal is like to be the champion, and this, which I get it, right? But sometimes people just want to fight.
Right.
You know, it's not about that because for me, I understand the dedication, the grind, the hard work that goes in to being a champion, right? Like I have this access, so I get to see, behind the scenes stuff. So I understand what goes into being a Derek Lewis or Kamaru Usman. Like I've seen the training, right? But then I've seen like levels under that, right? Where I don't want to be the champion, but I just want to be really good. Like who we got right? Like a Neil Magny or at that night again. And not to say he doesn't want to be champion, but just not at the champion level right now. He's on the way up. Right. So maybe I just want to be right there. Like I don't want to go higher than that because what happens is people in general have a limited amount of bandwidth internally they can give out. And so for me to want to be the best fighter in the world or whatever, that's going to take away from other facets of life that I want to focus on, whether it be the social justice, the photography, whatever it may be. Like I have energy that I have to put in other places. So I have to sort of limit it or limit where certain bandwidth go. And that's just how I rationalize it, man. So for me, although I want to be really good and really talented, all these things, I know I don't have the bandwidth to input all of what needs to be put in to become the best in the world. So I put in just enough where I allocate to fighting, I allocate to photography, I allocate to production. I'm able to allocate this bandwidth in certain areas that I wouldn't be able to do if I was solely focused on like one facet of life.
Right. Well, and you brought up one topic there that I did want to get into. Is social justice, right? You're someone that I've admired on how honest you are about your opinions on that when things are wrong and they're being handled that way. And me personally, I've always looked to sports as kind of the ultimate equalizer, right? You can be in a locker room with everyone from every background, and you kind of have this collection of, well, we have a common goal, and yeah, they may have their opinions outside of the locker room, but inside we can mostly put those away. And I've kind of seen, from me, I've trained very, very lightly in mixed martial arts, just a handful of times really got into a gym. But I felt like that level of camaraderie and differences really is escalated even at that level. And I wanted to get your opinion on it since you do have a sports background, but also a martial arts background. Is it more prominent in a martial arts background where our differences don't really seem to be brought as highlight as when we walk onto the street? Because on the street, they look at me, I'm a white guy, they look at you, you're a black guy. But then in the gym, we're just two guys training. But am I maybe just hopefully optimistic that in martial arts it's a little less than it is everywhere else? Or, what's your take on that?
You're absolutely right. In martial arts, you're going to get people from different backgrounds. So and I'll interject from a business standpoint, right? So in my business model, I look at, because I cover boxing, I cover MMA, and jiu-jitsu, which is a traditional martial, and that's how I separate them: traditional martial arts, MMA, and boxing. And all three of those, they all stem from three different socioeconomic backgrounds. Boxing, you're going to get at the lowest level, and then in between that, you're going to get the MMA fighters, and then above that, you're going to get the traditional martial arts. Now, in boxing, you're probably, and this is my own personal experience of what I've been through. In boxing, you're going to get a lot of um, people who think very much alike.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not gonna, even in that setting, like if you take fighting out of it, you're not gonna see much of a disagreement. Now in MMA, you're going to see a more diverse group of people
Mm-hmm.
in MMA, being that it's a fighting sport, but you're getting people from various backgrounds, from boxing, from wrestling, from Muay Thai, from Jiu-Jitsu, all these different things. So you're going to get people from different backgrounds who come together. Now, with that said, it may be a bit of more increased tension, being like if you know somebody's like a Trump supporter or something.
Mm-hmm.
But even in the MMA setting, I think that outside life is sort of separated because we're in the gym now, we're training, and like you have to, again, this isn't a ball sport like basketball, right? Where you go out playing a game and whatever. Like we're in the gym, we're training, we're practicing like really how to kill people, right? With limitations. We're trying to incapacitate people. So you have to be focused on that. You can't be really like when I'm in the gym training, like I promise you, I'm trying not to get punched in the face. Like I'm not really thinking about other things. And then on the flip side, for the traditional martial art, I think it goes back to kind of the same ideologies and same thinking, because now you're having it where, in the traditional martial art, that's going to where the money is. That's where the families who have this disposable income, who little Johnny wants to go train some jujitsu. Shit, all right, Johnny, and don't go to you go to like a Gracie Baja who charges you like $200 a month for unlimited. You know what I'm saying? So and you have to have the money for that. So those people are also gonna think a certain way. So as essence of when you're thinking about combat sports, the politics are outside life. You really don't. And again, from my perspective,
sure,
they haven't really crossed over much because it's a combat sport. Like again, you're focused on trying to learn how to beat somebody up or whatever your whether it's beating somebody up, whether it's incapacitated, whatever it is. Like that's what your focus is on in the moment. And any other distraction, you have to take that out, because like if I'm sitting here sparring, I'm thinking about some shit that happened outside, and the dude busts me in my face, like I was distracted, right? And so you want to cut all of those things out when you're inside the gym.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a good take, and then that's kind of what I was hoping is the case, right? That it kind of has a separation, but
and as I say, so I do feel that we're living in a much different time at the moment. Like this is an important part of history where we're seeing a shift, and the way society is the way people in society move now is different. So it's hard to gauge what's going on right now off of like past experiences. Like this is something that like it's tough, because, and the reason I say that is because like I'm seeing people who like I'm losing friends. This isn't like people are trying to politicize like the whole Black Lives Matter movement. Like people are trying to politicize that, right? And what that does is divide people. Like it's not something to be politicized about. So I'm seeing people on my timeline, whether people I've called friends of mine, like I've seen them say some things that are just wild, outlandish. And this is like, let's just take global warming, right? I'll take that, just the one on the top of my head. Like if you disagree with global warming, right? Now I'm a person who thinks the shit's happening. So it's like a slow progression, and there are all these other variables that come into play with global warming, whether it's cars, whether it's cows, there's all of these other variables that go into global warming. So if I'm talking to a person and we have a disagreement about global warming, I'm not like, I'm probably going to say, all right, this dude isn't really smart, but I'm probably just going to leave it at that. When we're discussing Black Lives Matter, we're now talking about the survival
Mm-hmm.
of a group of people. There is no gray area.
Nope.
There is no middle ground on whether people should have a decent way of living.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is either it's black or white. And
Unfortunately, it really comes down to those two things, which is a problem.
That's where we are now. Like we saying all these things for years, and we tried to get people's attention, and y'all just like, no, that's not happening. But now we're here because of your insolence, right? So now that we have to be smart in our decisions. And when I see people that I've known for a decade, dude, and they've said some inflammatory shit on their post, and I'm just like there's been a few times like I've been in tears because of the shit that people I've been that close. That's how close I've been. People I've stayed at their houses, I spent quality time with, and to see the shit, like there is no like, oh, you just like I can't lose friends because you disagree politically. Like this isn't a political, like I get it's been politicized, but this isn't a political statement. You know what I'm saying? And so that's been sort of the hardest part for me because like again, the majority of my life or the majority in the past 12 years, the majority of my life, if not, I would say 90% of my life involves fighting, right?
Right.
And when you develop these friendships and camaraderies and these bonds with people in this sport, and then all of a sudden, like you see where they really stand, like this shit hurts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just where we are now. Like that, but that's life though. Like life evolves and things change, and we're not gonna be like we're in this constant state of like living. Like that has to change, right? Mm-hmm. Like we don't ride horses anymore. You know, we don't have, although dueling is still legal in Texas. I'm ready to I'm ready to challenge on duel.
Well, there's a lot of people that need to be slapped, especially over the last 6 months, some of the stuff that people have said.
I'm ready to go out here dueling cats, man. I'm telling you. But, you know, Rona or no Rona, man. I'm ready to smack some people. It's just wild, man. Because like people, I had a dude. All right, like there's this guy. He used to fight back in the. He's old now. He's probably like 55, 60. So he used to fight back. He's an old boxer, right? Now he works for the state. He's a judge and a ref for the state of Texas. And he says some like mad like inflammatory racist shit on his post, right? He's one of them Mexicans who thinks he's white, right? He's one of those guys. And he thinks he's better than.
Yep.
And I called him out on it, and that wasn't disrespect. I was just like, yo, like what? I know you. What are you doing? Dude told me to suck his dick or suck a dick. I looked at it, and I was like, I got you. And the whole thing is like, I'm going to see him. Because he's a ref or a judge or whatever. And I'm going to call him out on it. Like, I'm going to walk up to my guy's face, and we're going to have words. Because, again, you can't, like, people, whether it's the keyboard warrior stuff or whatever, first of all, I know you.
Yeah.
Right? We know, I've shot portraits of you. You've hired me for jobs. Right? You come when you see me out, you're always, hey, Mikey. You're like, want to be a friend of my face. But then when I call you out on some racist shit, you want to tell me to suck a dick? All right, I need you to tell me that in my face. Yeah, I need. Well,
it's the Mike Tyson quote, right? Too many people are comfortable with saying stuff now, not getting punched in the face for it.
Well, we're living in a different time, though. We're living in a time where the people who are now adults, like they grew up, they were raised. I mean, look, so for me, I'm 35, and I haven't really celebrated a birthday for like 15 years. So that 15 years almost kind of like runs together, and I forget how old I am at times. But when I put it in perspective, it makes me think like, oh, this is the people in my generation. This was like the timeout era. They would put kids in timeout for doing, like, we're living in an era where participation medals became a thing, right? So you have it where people have this sense of like, I don't even really know what really this sense of entitlement culture, right? And when you don't get your way, you just throw fits. So we have adults who, because that's just how they were raised. We have adults, man, throwing fits, and it is just, it is wild times right now, man. But that, like I said, that's just, I think what happens is the pendulum, like you have the pendulum swinging, and you have it where the opposition was like, no, we need to correct it, but it was just an overcorrection.
Mm-hmm.
We're in that overcorrected. Well, we're probably in the peak of the overcorrective state right now, because you're getting a lot of both sides are firing at each other. You have it where people who are just the people who cry about everything,
yep,
who whine about everything, like they're now being called out on that bullshit. So that's why you start to see the whole Karen movement, right?
Right.
Because you have people with this sense of entitlement who've been going around and they've been acting a certain way, and they've been thinking they're better, and they can call the police, I can do all these things. Mm-hmm. It's like, wait a minute. No, we have to reel this shit back in. And so that's the point we're at now, is so we give people, we call racist Karens. And I know some people try to trivialize it, like, oh, you shouldn't call them Karens or whatever. And it's like, no, I don't think people understand. Like, for Black people, like, we find humor in shit, like, mm-hmm. because when there's pain, if you have to, you're trying to figure out a way to deal with pain, right? And the only way you really know how is laughter. So that's why we as Black people, we are really good at poking fun at shit, and especially people when they do dumb shit. So this Karen thing comes out, and because of time we're living in, we're doing it because we're trying to, like, we gave them little cute names and shit just to be funny. Pat, Pepper, or what was it, Permanent Patty, all these little names, right? Yeah. And that's kind of where Karen came from, and we kind of just ran with that one. And so now you have it where those people who are being called Karens are like, well, that's racist. And we're like, wait a minute. Like, that's not how racism works. But that's what I'm saying. It's like you have it where people are so like, you call me a Karen, that's racist. Like, what? Like, that makes no sense to me. But mm-hmm. again, I've used this time to enlighten myself and to theorize and hypothesize all the what's sort of going on right now. And I've come up with some great ideas. But yeah, man, we're just living. It's wild though that people can just hijack like a Karen and be like, yeah, that's racist now. But
well, it's the same thing. It's the same thing like when you have people that are trying to hijack the Black Lives Matter movement by saying all lives matter, when the actual movement itself is not around other lives don't matter. It's about bringing Black lives to an equivalent front. But everyone feels left out whenever we focus on something, especially in the Black community. It's, well, don't just focus on that. What about us too? We matter too. But there's been a group of our country that's a group of our society that's been left out for most of it. And that's what the movement's trying to bring to the forefront, and people want to hijack that.
Well, yes, and I also think that you're over, or you're not really looking at it in the correct way. So here's my theory on the whole situation, and because I see people get like frustrated and mad about things, and I'm like, like that's not where your energy should be. When I talked about bandwidth earlier,
sure,
that's not where we need to take that and put it elsewhere, and here's why. So you have it where you have a group of people, right? Let's just say we're going to take non-racist and racist, right? We're all living on the same plane, right? But it's just we have two different interpretations of reality, right? Mm-hmm. We go outside, and it's me and a racist dude, right? I look up and I say, yo, the sky is blue. He doesn't see the sky as being blue. And I can sit here and argue until I'm blue in the face, like the sky is blue, and he doesn't see it because that's not his perspective. And what's happening is you have people with one perspective trying to articulate and trying to almost convince the opposition sort of that this is the correct way. Well, the opposition is like, my way is right.
Right.
Not yours. And so it's like a war right now. It's a war of common sense almost. And that's just where we are. Like, people have to look at it like that. You have to look at this as like, this is a war on common sense. This dude, you're trying to prove, you're trying to get your message across.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same point, they're trying to get their message point to counter yours. Like, the person isn't just gonna lay down like, all right, you're right. Like, that's not how war works.
Right.
People have that like mentality. They're gonna be less like shocked and surprised when I'm never shocked and surprised when anything happens, because in my mind, again, this is a war on common sense. So if you have a person who is trying to get their point across, these people are willing to die for their cause.
Right.
Like, we're willing to die so that we can eradicate this system. These people are willing to die to keep that system in place.
Right.
So that's how you have to look at it. You can't look at, oh, why are these Karens doing it? They're doing it because they're trying to win.
Right.
And if you look at it as such, you can prepare. And that's why I feel is the fallacy in this war from the anti-racist people, is that they don't see it as such. They see it as like, why can't these people be nice? Why can't they think like us? You can't look at it like that, right? Because that's not how these people are. They're I'm not going to even use the word hateful. I'm just going to, which they are. That's their perspective. They have a hateful perspective. And I'm not knocking it. If that's what you chose to do, cool. But you have to also understand there are consequences for your actions.
Sure.
You chose a hateful path, you have to deal with the consequences of the hateful path. Being that you don the flag of the Confederate losers, and then you're gonna get talked about. Like, you can't don the flag of the losers. Like, you can't have monuments of losers up everywhere, and then when they come down, you get mad. It's like, no, y'all lost. When the hell, again, this comes back to participation medals. Mm-hmm. Y'all, and then even the monuments, these statues weren't even erected post-Civil War. Like, these were erected, years later, just to scare Black people. That's
most of them were erratic. Yeah, most of them were built between like the 40s and the 60s during the Civil Rights Movement, and that's why they're so crappily built, most of them. But yeah, that's when they were brought on. They were brought on as a symbol of hatred, really.
Exactly, like the thing that, and that's what I'm saying. It's like y'all built these statues of these losers. It's like they're like scarecrows.
Yeah,
that's really what they are. And so now it's time for, again, times are changing. It's time for these scarecrows to go out. But y'all mad, and again, I get why you're mad. From your perspective, your kings and your gods, these racist gods. I get it. I understand it. But that's the beauty of it. Because I understand it, I now know how to attack you. I always tell people, man, the best way to a racist heart is their pockets.
Yep.
That's the best way. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing that these races who are, because now we're getting to the point where we're getting, even at the underlying system level, we're getting more anti-racist on the playing field, right? on the battlefield, so to speak. So it's now you're seeing where people who are doing these mad, just racist and homophobic things, like they're not. I don't really believe in cancel culture. I think that's because it's kind of like the whole the whaling thing. Like, when you're going out there and you're throwing these big nets out there and you just like, you're fishing, right? You're just gonna get a bunch of shit. You don't get your tuna, but you'll get fins, you'll get some sharks, you'll get some turtles, you'll get a little bit of everything. And that's kind of what cancel culture is to me. And you have to really, because there's context, man. There's all of these other variables have been in play when people make these decisions, and you can't just like, all right, you said something in this moment, you're out of there. You have to weigh what they've done. You have to weigh what they've done prior, et cetera, et cetera. But people don't want to do that. But back to the camera, we're seeing, like, you want to get somebody, get them out of here, get their job. They're losing jobs, they're losing endorsements, they're losing money. And that's how you hurt. Now, is it really going to change their ideologies and the way they think? Probably not. It's probably going to make it's probably going to intensify it. But that's cool though. That's cool because now they're in that house, they're in this bubble, they're all angry and they have no money.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm cool with that. I'm
right.
cool with a racist who's struggling, who these people who these little hillbillies who are out in the double wides who are racist as hell, who talk shit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm cool with that. You're in a trailer park. I'm cool with that. You where you need to be. So that's why I think we need to collectively send these people. All these people who are talking recklessly, that's cool. Just take them. If you don't like what that message, cut the support system. Cut their funding. Go to talk to the people who are sponsoring them, whether it's a big company or a small company. You got these little mom and pop shops around town. That is the wildest thing to like. That's the crazy. That is how ingrained people's racism is there,
mm-hmm.
like in the moment. So I've been doing these little videos, right? Mm-hmm. I know you see it where I do like a little commentary on the attacks of Karen and shit. Yep. That has one, probably my most popular one right now. There's this lady who called this black chick a nigger in the convenience store, but she said it and then the chick gave her a pass, right? Here's her pass. She was like, say it again and see what happens.
Right.
Now, you had to, she said it, and you see the lady, she posted, like she even put the arm up on the counter. She leaned back, she thought about it, and then she said it. And when she got her ass whooped. Like, because you didn't have to say it. You make the conscious decision, and you think you're better than. You think there's no, you've never been punching them out, right? So that's where we're at now. Is where you have the people who are like, they're in their mind, they're like, if I say this, it's gonna cost me this, and they still say it.
Yep.
That is so wild to me. When you're a business owner and you go on these races, like there was the dude who went at the Asian people in the restaurant.
Yeah.
No one caught the beginning of it.
Right.
He was just sitting there. He said his stuff. No one caught it on camera. When the table pulled out the camera phone and they pointed at him and he looked at it. Now, this is the CEO of a tech company. He looked at the camera. I don't know. He obviously was drunk or whatever, but he still made the conscious decision to keep going.
Yep.
Once the camera was rolling, he didn't have to. Because let's just say if there was no video, right? And let's just say the family did tell somebody. It would have just been a headline, was like, this CEO allegedly said some stuff, but there would have been no proof. It would have been their word, and again, it would have fizzled out. But the moment you have video, it's there forever. And in that moment, you make the conscious decision to say the shit you said. Like, you're not even like, it's not like you work at McDonald's. You're the CEO of a company. You're a millionaire.
Yep.
And in that moment, you couldn't just, all right, I know I feel this way, but let me not say it. I'm gonna just get out of here. But no, he said it. So, and then he was out of there. They fired her. They got it. The board was like, nope, you gone.
Yep.
So it's just wild, man, that people are willing to jeopardize. Remember I said these people are willing to die for the movement? They're willing to die for it. These people are willing to jeopardize their livelihoods for their racist and hatred beliefs. Being that I know that, right? There is nothing that can surprise me that people do. Because you're telling me, like, you're willing to die for hatred. All right, I mean, so be it.
Yeah, well, I think there's a big difference, too, between seeking for understanding and seeking to win, which is what you're talking about, right? Everyone wants to kind of win. They just want to say what they want to say to win.
Oh, I've had so many conversations over the pandemic with I talked to like this middle-aged white nun. I've had conversations with tech CEOs. I've had quality conversation with people who were on the fence, who and they weren't on the fence by choice either. They just, through their experiences, they just didn't know. And so they knew me as being this voice, and so they reached out. Like I had several meetings and phone conversations, and it was a way to enlighten people and help them understand something that they just didn't have a perspective on. You can't expect someone to understand. Like, they have to have empathy for one to understand. But if someone doesn't have if someone didn't go through the experiences, or they don't have the experiences you have, and you're trying to get them to understand like something you're going through, they're not gonna get it. You know? And so those for me though, I've realized that it's all about how they initiate the conversation. Like, you're gonna have people who are gonna be inquisitive, and they're gonna want to they're gonna want to learn and ask questions, and then you're gonna be people who just come and just who gonna just make statements, and I can tell it. And that's the difference between the people who are just here to win and those who are here to learn.
Yeah, no, it's really been an eye-opening 6-7 months. I mean, these things have been going on forever, but I think between the mix of the pandemic, being home, having extra time on your hands, and just more coverage on things that are going on, it's blown it all up.
Yeah.
Now
so I'm the guy, like, I don't believe like if someone dies or whatever, it's like, oh, the whole meant to be. Like, if I'm the guy who's like, if you walk in and then like an air conditioning unit from like 7 floors like hits you in the head, that's just what it was. Like, it was just one of those right place, right time. Well, wrong place, wrong time. That kind of hat. Like, you have to think about all the people who walked under an air conditioner, right, or one of the wall units. You have to think about all the air conditioning units that have failed and have never hit anybody. It was bound to hit somebody in the head.
Right.
And the same thing with this is like, over time, we've been saying this over and over and over. Things have been happening over and over and over, but you've had a system in place that has been able to shield itself from that. Given you have a pandemic where everyone is staying home. There is no real media coverage of anything. There is no shows and movies aren't being made. We're all just here. We're all on our phones, all on our computers or iPads or whatever. It's good. And now, again, that shit happened in real time. You know what I'm saying? And so with technology now, you got it where before people were always on the go. They're going to work, they're going here, there. So, put it back in my pocket. Put it back in my pocket. Close the laptop. Now you just hear. And you in your face. And you have no other choice. And so I think the other thing about it was you had this guy, and it wasn't just like a clip. It wasn't that we saw a small like interaction. Like, this shit the dude was on his neck for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So when you're sitting there and you're watching this second after second, I can't even, I personally haven't seen the video. I can't. But when I'm imagining people just watching the full video, like, that's just in your head. You're literally just watching this dude murdered.
Yeah.
And when even though we've seen it happen in the past, we've seen it where people are running away and cops shoot them in the back. We've only saw these small little clips. Well, what happened? What happened? Well, in this moment, it's just there is no clip. It's just a long stream of footage here. And we're all just like, well, he ain't doing nothing. Why is he? Again, so it was just the perfect storm. For all of this to happen. We got the racist in the office who is saying, and again, I saw this happening. I'll call it. I saw this happening when Obama got elected. That was the shift in the country. And this is coming. I was at Texas A&M at the time, So and for people who don't know, Texas A&M is hella races out there in College Station. I was in the middle of it, so I wasn't just like out somewhere and just oblivious to what was going on. Like I'm at a university where you have the first black man running for president, and the white people, the racist white people there was hot. And you saw that. For me, that was when culture shifted. Now, I get people are going to have different experiences growing up, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe someone saw it prior, Right. But for me, it was when Obama got elected. I saw white racists. They was crying. I saw grown men crying when Obama got elected. And I'm just like, wait, why y'all crying? I didn't get it in the moment. And then I was like, oh, that's why y'all crying. I get it. And but it wasn't even real. Like, it wasn't even a real thing. It was this created fear.
Yep.
And that's what's so nasty about, like, that's what's nasty about the game, though, is that you have people who can literally create these ideas out of their head and pass it on as fact and then run with it.
Yep.
Like, that's what propaganda is, though. So, like I said, it was a right timing. I think it was just the perfect storm for everything to happen. And I honestly feel we're going to see a change. We're going to see a shift. But with everything, like, you're going to have some bad shit happen before like the storm is going to come, before it's sunny outside. And we're in that stormy moment right now. But we got to hold tight and make it through.
Yeah, no, I hope you're right. I hope we do. I mean, of course, I think we all agree that there will be some sort of correction, but we just hope it's swift, and I hope it gets us back all to an even playing field. But what that looks like, I just don't know. I did want to run a couple some fight questions by you, especially with some upcoming fights. But I guess I'll lead with this one. It's not the next fight that I wanted to talk about, but I'll lead with this one, kind of talking about someone that plays the heel pretty well. And Colby Covington is fighting against Woodley. Now, I know you said, kind of when you're training and when you're getting ready to get into a fight, you try to stay focused on the task at hand. But me personally, I can't stand him, right? And I don't know him personally to know if it's a ploy or it's really how he is, right? I don't know.
I know. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. So that fight for if I'm Woodley, like if I'm in Woodley's camp, I think there has to be a ton of focus on trying to keep him in the moment. And he's a champion and he's a longtime veteran. I know he's probably not going to have those issues, but for me personally, it would be hard for me not to let that emotion spill into what I'm doing. So I want to start with that fight. What's your take on that fight? First, from a fight perspective, but also from a totality of that fight.
Yeah, and great point where you saying Willie, he has that championship mentality. For him, I'm gonna be honest. I don't think he's letting it get to him, or will let it get to him the way people think, like the way it would possibly affect you and I. I think he has that championship mentality, and it's not gonna be a factor. I feel that, man. I don't know if Tyron is if he's still dedicated like he once was. Kobe, on the other hand, he is. This dude he has a point to prove. But let me look. So you mentioned like you didn't know if it was like an act or not.
Right.
So I'll be honest with you. Here's my theory on Colby Covington. It started off as a gimmick. He was looking for a way to gain attention. And in the moment, that was a perfect storm. Right moment for him, jump on the MAGA bandwagon. But again, with the change of times, you have to understand, this isn't 1970, 1980, where you can wear blackface and then people kind of laugh it off and move around.
Mm-hmm.
We're living in a time where you own past, present, future. You own that 100%. So what happens is when you take such a stand like this, whatever this mad extreme stance, right? Because the MAGA people, they're extreme. Extreme extremists. That's all they are. They're extreme right. So when you take it, like, he wasn't just like, it wasn't like Coke or Pepsi.
Right.
Actually, Coke or Dr. Pepper. I'm a Dr. Pepper guy to the day I die. It wasn't that. Like, it was, coming back to it, races versus non-races.
Right.
And what happens is, well, first, this isn't, back to the gimmick thing. Like, this isn't wrestling, right? So it isn't where, even in the moment, even in wrestling, like, people get hounded for, the heels still get hounded. And
Yep.
until like, bro, I'm just playing a character.
Yeah.
But what happens is, this isn't wrestling. This isn't scripted. This is real. Fighting MMA is real life. So in his mind, he was like, oh, I'm going to do it as a gimmick. But being that this is real life, being that it's such an extreme perspective and point of view, you have to own that. Like, you can't
Yep.
be just 1 foot in on the MAGA boat. Like, you either MAGA or you not, right?
Yep.
And so when you do that, you put yourself in a box. And when you put yourself in a box, you better be the baddest motherfucker in that box.
Yep.
And unfortunately, and again, I don't. His athletic ability is that's irrelevant in the case of, races versus anti-races.
Yep.
So do I think he can fight? 100%. He's a talented fighter. He's really good. But he's still a piece of shit for his ideologies, And not even just the ideologies though. It's just like, he played this gimmick. He's this larger life person, and whether he believes, at this point, I think when you play the character for so long, like it embodies you all, or you embody it, so to speak. So I think at this point, it's like the Venom joint. Like, you get the little symbiote that touches you, you're like, ah. Now he's full Venom now.
Like, yeah. Well, that's what I always thought it was a gimmick, but then it's like, how I've started to think. Yeah, I started to think he has to believe it, at least to some talent now, because there are so many opportunities, right? When you start fighting for championships, you have enough of a platform to say, you know what, look, I'm a back off a little bit on this, because that really isn't where I side on it. Maybe I had original ideologies on it, but I've started to think in a different way or something. You have enough of a platform now. If you want to back off on it, you can, because it's not what propelled him to a championship fight, right? His fighting propelled him to a championship fight. The gimmick got him in the question.
Logically, dog. You look at it way too logically. You're looking at this shit way too logically. You have to look at this from the perspective of a little douchebag boy who has no friends, no one likes him, and you want to be liked. And you're willing to sell your soul to be liked. I don't care. If you support Donald Trump, you're willing to sell your soul for whatever the cause that you choose. You're willing to sell your soul. And Kobe Covington, I think like, if you're saying the MAGA stuff, you have to believe it to some extent. And what happens is, I feel Kobe could. I feel people like Kobe was probably on the fence. He was one of these guys who are like, I got people of all races who are mine. I got 5 black friends. I train with those guys. He's black. I train with that Brazilian over there. That's his mentality. But again, in the current climate we're in, with everything going on, if he would have just did that, he would have still been in the middle.
Right.
He would have been on the fence. Like, I support Trump, but I still got black friends. I still got Brazilian friends. That would have been in the middle. The middle ain't getting you nowhere.
Right.
You gotta pick a side. You gotta go one way or the other. And he picked the side that he felt most comfortable with. He wasn't gonna feel most comfortable saying Black Lives Matter. He would feel most comfortable saying MAGA. So that, and again, you're trying to create this image because you want to sell tickets. You want people to watch you. You want to go to the White House. Let's put in the fact that we have a reality star in the office, right? So you have it that dude, now you see how he talk. Come on to the White House. Bring that back. Oh, friends with Dana White. Dude, and again, I'm not mad at the hustle that he chose. I'm not mad by it at all. But Kobe has to understand their consequences.
Yep.
You have this. There is no coming back for Kobe. Like,
Right.
and so that's where he is now. So you make these decisions, you make these choices in life. You got to own them. You own the MAGA shit now. There is no coming back from that. You were MAGA forever, and if you and he's probably cool with that. And if he's cool with it, I'm cool with it.
Right.
Because again, as long as he understands the consequences, and that's why I live my life logically and based off of logic. Is if I do this, this is gonna happen. Okay, then I don't want to do that. I want to go
Right.
this route. You know what I'm saying? But people don't think about these things because they can't see outside of their own perspective. I can look at it from my point of view, your point of view, her point of view, whoever's point of view, and I can make it a sort of accurate assessment of what needs to happen. People like Cope, they can't, man. They're only living in their head with they're selfish, they're douchebags, and they just want what they want. And he wants to be a MAGA supporter, whatever, Trump guy. And again, man, there's no coming back from that. You got
Right.
you got forever. So power to
Yeah.
him. As far as the fight though, if Tyron has taken this quarantine to rededicate himself, I don't know either way. But if he has, and again, this is a different fight. I'm trying to think because it's not gonna be like a Kamaru fight.
Right.
If he's rededicated himself though, to some extent, I think he does well. I think he goes out there and beats the shit out of Kobe. That's obviously the play. That's what I'm wanting to happen.
Right.
But it's a fight, and it didn't happen. So we'll see.
Sure. Now, coming up soon, right? The closest fight, I guess, is the DC Stipe, third part of this trilogy. DC's really dominated majority of the actual fight time there, even though they're 1-1 in this match. I think everyone is clear that DC wants this to be his last fight because the John Jones, fight never happened. So where are you thinking on this fight for those two?
Man, I agree with you. As far as DC being able to, or what he was doing in the fight, I feel DC has a fight IQ to not make like crazy changes, and that's even going into a fight knowing is your last. Like that's going to be some added pressure to you, whether you want to admit it or not. But I feel that DC has what it takes to step up to the plate. He has to be smarter in this than in the last fight. He has to know the body shots are coming.
Yep.
He has, you know what I'm saying? So he has to know that Stipe's gotten better.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to prepare or he's going to have had to prepare for that, which I see he has. I don't see DC as a guy who he's prideful, man. Like, no, look, you took that smashing by John Jones, and he was like, nah, I got to get that back. That tells me a lot about somebody because a lot of people just took that L like, shit, like he really is that good.
Yeah.
But he wanted it back, and he got washed again.
Yeah.
I think it's something in DC that I believe, and again, I just right time, right moment. I want to say DC is going to retire the champion.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think it's one of those things where like going into the first fight, he's such a dominant wrestler. He's able to kind of ragdoll Stipe and win that first fight. And then I think going into the second fight, he took the thought of Stipe's probably spending most of his time making sure I can't take him to the ground. So I'm going to surprise him and just stand up and beat the hell out of him. And he did, almost to his detriment, or it was to his detriment by kind of walking away from his wrestling. I think if he has a very balanced fight, I think it's a very one-sided match.
Yeah, for sure. And then again, not to like the game plan. Obviously, hindsight is 2020. But even in the moment, like you have to think like that was probably a solid game plan.
Yeah,
but, they didn't game plan for Stipe's game plan. They, whatever they expected was going to happen, like they didn't factor that in. And not everyone does. Like you'll hear people like, oh, like how do you prepare for this opponent? And you're going to have guys like, well, I just prepare for myself. Like I don't prepare for it. And so what happens is DC game plan for shit from the first fight, and he didn't factor in. All right, Stipe he gonna tweak some shit too.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what happened. So now, going into the third one, I I have to say that DC has factored in those other little variables now.
Mm.
You can't factor them all in, but now you understand that fight two, he brought something completely different than in fight one. So in fight three, you have to deal with fight one, fight two, and then some random shit that you don't even know is gonna happen for fight three.
Right.
But obviously within the abilities of Stipe, we don't expect Stipe to be throwing flying triangles or some shit. But yeah, so I like with all that said though, I feel that DC he's gonna retire champion.
Right. Well, I'm with you there. Now, there's another fight on that card. It may not be, for everyone. I think the guys that are in the MMA community will be watching, but Sean O'Malley's fighting. And I enjoy watching him fight. I think he's very electric. I think he's talented, but there just seems from an outside perspective of almost like a UFC coddling of him, where they're very, very particular on his opponents and they're kind of really walking him up, which as a fan, I've always seen the UFC as the type of organization that's really done a good job of putting talent versus talent. And that's where I think they've aspired way higher than what boxing does, because there's all the outside factors. But with O'Malley, I'm not sure if it's because, the suspension and coming back and they're kind of just walking him into it, but he gets a lot of coverage as if he is a top 5 fighter in the division. And he just finally squeaked into the top 15. I guess, what's your opinion on O'Malley? Do you feel like he's kind of being handled as like the next big star because he does have that, so they're kind of walking him through? Or is it just because of social media he has more of a standing and that's why he's out in front?
Yo, this is a business. It's a business. No, I feel like I like watching him fight. I watched so many fights.
Right.
I haven't, outside of the last one, I haven't really like focused fully on him. I've seen a bunch of highlights prior to the last fight, and what I've seen, I've been a fan of. Like, I like it. Yep. I've watched some of the behind the scenes of his training, some of the techniques. You can tell that he is like the new era fighter.
Yeah.
Kind of like what we saw with who was it who came out? Well, outside of John, it was past John. It was somebody who came out. We were like, yo, that was it. The Yair.
Oh, yeah. Yair Rodriguez, yeah.
Yeah, so we're seeing like these guys that are, they've been training since kids, and they're gonna have skill sets that a lot of other people, like me, traditional boxer, we're not gonna have that. So I am excited about that. But as far as everything else, man, you going back to a bit, you have to do that. Like, if you have someone who has the ability to be marketed, you have to jump on that, because that is a skill in itself. Not everyone has the ability to talk and have charisma and to have people want to watch them. And it's not even about the fight. Like, yeah, like people want to watch the fight, but then they want to watch the behind the scenes. They want to watch they want to watch the dude play video games. Like, right. You have to have a personality for that. So I feel that the UFC is doing the right. What was it, 35 too, right? So he's at the these lower weight classes.
Yeah.
They don't get the attention like this. This isn't a Derek Lewis. You know what I'm saying? So you do what you got to do, and I like what they're doing with Sean. Man, I like what Sean is doing. I think he had like weed out now. I need to.
Yeah, he does.
I gotta try like Sean O'Malley. That sugar O'Malley, whatever the hell he calls it. I want to try it. It's just one of those things, man, where you just have to wait and see what happens. Like, we can sit here and we can say, oh, he's being pushed, he's doing that, and that. Fucking, he just walked off. Oh, buddy.
It's his second walk-off knockout, too, that he's had in his career, where he's just walked away, which is fun to watch.
He's a 35er and he's one punching people. Like,
yeah.
Fuck. So it's one of those things. And here's my other take, right? So for me, I don't really I don't buy into the hype like that of people, or I think it's for like casual. Well, it's more than casual fans who really buy into it. But I think that people focus on it too much because the whole
Sure.
like these rankings and shit, like it's so subjective and a bunch of stuff. Like for me, I'm just watching the fight. Like I don't know what Conor. I think Conor was what I was thinking. Like Conor, right? I didn't buy into the hype. I don't even remember when I was like, oh shit, Conor. Probably when he fought Floyd, I found out, oh shit, he's here. Before that, like I would watch every Conor fight because I'm a fan of his. Like I just want to see what he's gonna do. You know, like when John Jones fight, I don't care who John was fighting Matt Hamill. I was like, all right,
yeah,
Matt Hamill. No, shout out to Matt Hamill. He's
right.
But yeah, so I'm just watching, man, and I wish them all the best. Like as long again, it's fighting. You're gonna go out there, you're gonna do your thing. And if that's what you're here to do, just be good at that. And we gonna watch. I don't the extra shit that people try to buy into, like, oh, is he deserve? Is he ready? Who cares? Just watch the motherfucker. Just watch the kid fight. And then after the fight, you can like you gave your opinion, like, yeah, you can say, oh, like prior you would say just to kind of like I said it or whatever.
Right.
If you think he'll win or whatever, or if you think he's good, cool. But like when people get into these subjective argument, like who's better, LeBron or Jordan, I think this shit is so like it makes for good like conversation, but it shouldn't be more than that. People get so like, oh my god, like Sean O'Malley, like he's not as good as like who cares?
Yeah,
who gives a shit? Did you not see the one punch knockout he just had? He gonna do that again. Like you should when he fights, you should just like is he gonna do the one punch again?
Right.
Like that's all you should be thinking about. But people they think about other factors that don't matter. Just watch the fight and watch and see either he gonna one punch somebody or someone gonna put him to sleep. And at the end of the day, we all win because we get to watch a good fight.
Yep. Yeah. So now the third fight that I wanted to ask you, or I guess the fourth fight that I wanted to ask your opinion on is probably one of the ones I'm most interested about because of the difference in fighting style in Khabib versus Gaethje. I guess I'll just leave it kind of up in the air there. I mean, what do you really think about that fight?
Dude, I've trained with Justin. I haven't trained with him. Been in the same training room with him. I remember when I was out there in elevation fighting or training, and I was like day one in Denver. I'm just the altitude. I'm breathing a little harder, and I did some rounds, and then like I saw him over there, and I was like, I'm not going over there today. And then I heard him say is like he put a bounty on himself. He's like $1,000 anybody who can drop me with a body shot, and I was like, oh shit, I need to be watching. Nobody got the body shot, but like the dude is good, man. He's intense. I've hung out with him on I remember the first time I met him. I knew of him, but I didn't really know him.
Mm-hmm.
And I just personally like. He's one of the nicest guys. He's a little odd, and not in a bad way. More like he will say some provocative shit. And it was me, Pat Barry, and Justin, right? And we're in Dallas, and we're going to get. I think we had ordered some pizza. And we're going down, we're at the hotel, we ordered pizza, we're going down to get the pizza, right? And so it was Justin in front, it was Pat, me, and then Justin was in front of us, kind of like in a triangle. And we're just walking, and I don't even remember what the hell he said, but he said something, it was one of them where me and Pat stopped and looked at each other. And was like, yo, to this day, this is like 3-4 years, about 3 years ago. I don't remember what he said, but in that moment, I was like, yo, I should like write this down in my phone. Like that's how good it was. But I completely forgot. But in that moment, I was like, all right, this is a different cat. Like he's on a different wavelength, like brain wavelength. And he's a special talent. And if this was years ago, then I see what I think Pat was like, he's like, no, you don't know who he is. You gotta go watch his highlights. And then I checked his highlights and I was like, oh shit. That's Justin Gaethje. Again, I heard the name and never seen his fight, right?
Right.
So hanging out with the dude, really cool, like on a mental level. Seeing him in the training room, he's on a different level. You've seen his recent fights. He's been doing some violent shit that I've been just Oh, it's been so beautiful. With that said, he's taking on Khabib, and
Yeah.
that boy is no joke. I think it's going to be honest with you, because we all know what Khabib's strategy is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take Justin in this, being that, like, for Khabib, it goes back in the day. I put a pin in that. So before Holly Holm signed to the UFC, I was telling people, it's like, that's the person who will beat Ronda Rousey.
Mm.
And I think I interviewed Coach Wink at the time, and he was, and the reason why, it's all about styles.
Right.
So for Ronda Rousey, like, we all know her, she has to grab because she's a judo. Yep. So for her to be most effective, she has to grab a hold to you.
Yep.
Right? If she can't grab a hold of you, none of that shit works, because she has trash striking. Like, if you think about, like, her earlier fights in the UFC, where she was just ragdolling people, right, doing her thing. Yep. All of those people, their styles were sort of grappling based as well, whether it's wrestling, jiu-jitsu, whatever. And they also had to get close to be effective with their techniques. Mm-hmm. She was just way better at her techniques than they were at theirs, right? And so I was telling people, I was like, Holly, because I saw Holly fight for Legacy. Mm-hmm. I shot many of her photos of her fights, et cetera, et cetera. So I had, like, first-hand view, knowledge of what this chick can do to like another person in the cage. And Holly's style is, she's like, all right, I don't want you to be close to me. That was just the style. So going into that fight, being that it was literally like you had a kickboxer versus judoka. Mm-hmm. Is really, and you had and it wasn't like a Muay Thai kickboxer. It was like a dancing kickboxer, chick that don't stay still, versus someone who has like zero like striking IQ. Mm-hmm. Like, she wouldn't know how to close a distance, how to cut an angle. She wouldn't be able to do any of that. With that knowledge, I knew what was going to happen, being that it was a style. Right. And honestly, I see a similar fight happening. Given that Justin, because Justin had his wrestling is top notch, mm-hmm. he just don't like using it. Yep. That's him. And I've seen it. As long as he's able to keep the distance and not because Khabib just want to grab him anyway. Like, that's Khabib's game plan. Khabib, we've seen him get punched, we've seen him get hit. Yep. But then we've also seen him grab a hold of your ass and dump.
Yeah, and he'll never let go. Yeah.
Right, and so Justin, like, the dude, I don't even know shit. So for the longest, Justin couldn't see. He got his eyes fixed. So I don't know if he could, like, you see him take some shots early, and I can grab you. He can see. Mm. And this is Justin with new eyes, man. He's out there lighting cats up. And so I just feel that Justin has the ability to nullify Khabib's strengths. And because I don't think anybody else prior had that ability. Like, nobody wasn't able to stop those takedowns or the grappling. Like, no one can shut that down. Right. But I feel like Justin has the ability to do that, and I say he's gonna take the W.
Well, I hope so, man. It'll be really exciting. And not that I don't like Khabib. I just if Khabib is looking at 1 or 2 fights left, I would love to see a new champion in there that can kind of take it for a long time. That's. I mean, they keep talking about the potential of a GSP fight. If Khabib were to win, I think that's all hype. I don't think GSP even wants to get in the cage with that anymore. But also, I don't see that really.
Like, to me, man, like, that is the craziest thing. Like, people want to see, like, these wild fights, man, and at the end of the day, God, this is fighting, man. Yeah. Like, people get hurt in this shit, and that's kind of like that was my theory or my take on the Punk fight, man. Yep. Was that, like, this dude, he was just trying this shit out. He wasn't trying to be a champ. He ain't trying to be like a full-time fighter, I don't believe. Right. He thought he could do something. He had the connections to try it out at the highest level.
Yep.
With that said, I really could. I sent the guy to the emergency room after the fight, right?
Yep.
People are, you went to a decision. It's like, yeah, I beat that dude's ass but I had a point to prove.
Yep.
I could have went out there, even in the first round. If you watch the fight, I hit him with a right hand. His feet came together and he kind of stumbled back against the cage. I threw that at like 50%. I just threw it and it landed. Like, I wanted to land, but I didn't think it would touch him like that. And when it landed, in my head, I was like, oh shit. Like, first of all, when he threw the first jab, I was like, all right, dude can't fight. That was my first. Like, and not to knock it, like, there is a difference between like being a suck, like you suck as a fighter, and then and you just can't fight. There's two different situations here. He just can't fight. It's not a knock on him. Not everyone is meant. That's my theory on it. That's one of my looks on life, or my little perspective. Is like, not everyone is meant to do everything.
Sure.
No matter if you, I want to do, it may not be cut out for you. Yeah. So for him, I give him all the respect in the world for his willingness to walk into that, because I don't think he knew what he was getting into, to be honest with you, but he still knew what he was getting into. He knew he was getting into a fight. Yeah. Right? So with that said, when I realized that the dude couldn't fight and that I really could hurt him, like I could have hurt that dude really bad. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't have lived with that on my conscience, because like the guy was just trying this shit out. You know what I'm saying? Like the dude's doing like commentary now or some other shit on Fight Path. Like, if I would have hurt this dude where he couldn't like do his job right now, right, I would feel bad. Like, again, because it wasn't just like another guy that I'm fighting who's just in the, like anybody else I'm fighting, but I'm going in there for the kill. Just like they're going to kill me, I'm going there to get the kill as well. But for this guy, it just wasn't that. And I really could have hurt him. You know what I'm saying? So when we're talking about like a Khabib versus GSP, why? Khabib is gonna hurt you. And it's not a knock on GSP. It's just what it is. My guy was he was a dominant fighter at one point, and now he's gotten older. That's life. Yep. Why would anybody want to see that? Why? I couldn't for the life of me think of why I would want to watch. I don't. Now, would I watch if it happened? Yeah, right. 100% I would watch. Right. But I'm not like, yo, make that. If it never happens, I'm cool with that. Right. Yeah, no, I'm on the same boat with that. I'm happy with GSP just being on Instagram and posting his workouts, and that's good. No, be an IG model, GSP. Like, that's all you gotta do. Make your money. Like people when they kid me up, they're like, oh, Mike, when this, that. Like, I wanted to fight this year. I had every intentions on. I wanted to fight around May, and this was I was thinking about in February. I was trying to, shit going on, trying to get life back together, injuries, whatever. And so I had in my head I wanted to fight, in May. Then March rolled around, right? Punched everyone in the dick, and then we was just like, nope, that's not gonna happen because the training changes. I think right now an 8 to 9 week camp, I'm solid. But I need 8 to 9 weeks to get in the gym. Like, I don't want this. People, when you fighting again? Like, I don't know. Like, my coach got corona for a little bit. The gym was getting closed up and down. I'm mentally up and down. I sometimes want to go to the gym. Sometimes I don't want to go to the gym. This is a week. This week, I don't feel like doing shit. Last week, I was real active. This week, I don't feel like doing shit. So there's just so much going on right now. It's like, I don't know. But it's just like, if I don't fight, then I don't fight. Like, y'all do know this dude's trying to fucking kill me, right? Right, yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I have to be prepared for that. And if I can't prepare properly, then I ain't gonna do this shit. Right. So that's why. Yeah, people are just wild, man. People just, and I get it. Like, fight fans. I don't want to say fight fans are like bloodthirsty, but I think a bunch of them are. Yeah, well, they don't do a good job of separating from the human being aspect of it from the entertainment aspect of it. Correct. And I think that's a big problem. Correct. And again, I think because it goes back to any other sport outside of boxing, you're associated with like a ball or a game.
Yeah.
And so I get the entertainment, but this is not that. Like,
Yeah.
yo, people are putting their lives on the line. Yo, you see Buddy last night on the Contender Series. First of all, I'm gonna give a shout out to my guy
Yep.
Adrian Yanez. I've literally been in every one of his fights from his amateur debut.
Mm.
Last night, the Contender Series was the first fight I hadn't been at live or shot. So my dude got his contract. My dude Impa, he got the contract. I trained with him out in North Carolina. I don't know if that chick, the 20-year-old, she should have got it. I think she's good, but I don't know if she's ready for like these other savages in the UFC at 25 because it's a killer at 25. And then the guy who won via the broken arm.
That was nasty. That dislocated elbow that he caught. Yeah.
So they gave that guy a contract, and I was like, I don't like. He just slammed the dude. Like he didn't really like show them. But the guy who dislocated his elbow, first of all, day one of MMA, they was like, yo, you get taken down, never post your arm. I literally learned that like the first week of training. And I've never posted someone shoot a double, I just take the double. And to this day, if someone shoots a double on me, I do not put my arm out because I've always had a fear of that happening. Well, last night, dude gets a double and dislocates his elbow. Like, yeah, that can happen. That happens in other sports, but no one is shooting doubles in basketball.
Right.
Like somebody's always shooting. There's gonna be at least one double a night in a fight.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or on a fight card.
Right.
So
right.
the chances of like these things happening are far greater.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to factor in the dislocations, the broken bones, the concussions. You have to factor these things in when you're a fan. You want to see Khabib versus GSP. Why?
Well, and the other thing,
GSP?
the other thing too is you're looking at, last night's a good example, right? The Contender Series. That's to try to get a job in the UFC, right? But even guys that are on undercards or that are on the Fight Pass cards and things like that, there's not a lot of money in that for them. And they are putting their lives in the same risk as the guy in the main event. And that money difference is major. So it's like to call a lot of those fighters to say, oh, you need to fight or you need to come back. When's your next fight? Man, they want to fight, but they also got to make sure they're protecting their future.
That right there is so important that people don't have a perspective on that because so you're going to have fighters, right? I don't even think all fighters realize that because, and I say that again, I've been on both sides. I've been on the front end, I've been on the back end as well. So being behind the scenes, you'll hear these young guys, I'll fight anybody. And I'm like, why? Why would you do that? Like, you have to understand, like, this is a business. Just like the UFC is a business, they're a company, a fighter, you are a business. Every fighter is a brand. And I'm giving out free information right now, by the way. Every fighter is a brand and business of their own, and you have to treat it as such. You have to Sean O'Malley, right? He is taking the correct path right now. Whether people like it or not, say whatever, he's taking the correct path on building his brand up, building his legacy, whatever he's trying to do, his goals, he's doing that. If you're a fighter out here, you just like you. And again, I've seen this. I'm not making this shit up. Like, I've seen this personally. I've had these conversations. Like, I know some guys who are just really good, right? And I'll fight anybody. And then they go out there and fight anybody, and then they lose. And it's like, well, why did you do that? Like, it just made, because again, these people are fighters. Like, that's their job, is to go out and fight, right? That's why you have the right team around you to help pick the right fights. Right. Good friend of mine, he would have been in the UFC. He had a fight, it was on an LFA card, and then he lost to a guy who ended up he got signed right now. But before that, he took the wrong path to even get to that point. It was a struggle because when he was a solid amateur fighter,
He made his pro debut, and the people that were picking his fights, this was like he came from a traditional martial arts gym, and they were like, "Oh, fucking, we beat anybody." All right, cool. That's what happened. He started off his MMA career 0-4, and then he had to dig his way out of that. Now he worked his way up to one fight. He was one fight away from the UFC. But imagine if he wouldn't have taken the 0-4 route to get there, right? He ended up he had to go out to Poland and fight. He ended up winning that fight, by the way. He had to do all these crazy things, though, to get out of this hole. And it was because he put himself there. And then when he started, this is probably like 2000, let's say 2012. He probably didn't know. Now, he knew he wanted to go to the UFC. But he didn't, even in that time, no one really had, because Mick wasn't in yet, so no one really had a formula on how to get to the UFC in 2012, right?
Right.
So we knew 0-4 wasn't the way. We knew that.
Right.
But that's what happened to him. And then again, he had to work himself way out to get to that position, which he ended up losing that fight. But the point is that you have to treat this shit like a business. You have to pick smart fight. Now, you don't want to just fight cans all the time. We've seen that too. We've seen where dudes, let's take boxing, right? You see where a boxer, because that boxing is a similar model but different. In boxing, you're gonna fight like low level, and then you're gonna adjust a little bit higher to low level, and et cetera, et cetera. But what happens is you're gonna get a guy in boxing who's going to fight. He's gonna get to 10-0. But the 10 guys he beat, like maybe 2 had a winning record, but it was like 11-10 kind of win record. You know what I'm saying? So then that guy he gets those guys, and they're like, all right, you got to step up competition. We're gonna put you up here. Now these guys are gonna be a little bit better than the previous 10, right? But it's still kind of, let's just say he fights another 10, he goes 20-0. But let's say on that 21st fight, they're like, yo, we got a title fight for you. In his mind, I'm 20-0.
Yep.
It's not I'm 20-0 versus these guys. It's just I'm 20-0.
Yeah.
He goes in there against this guy who's like, I don't know, 17-0, 14 knockouts.
Right.
Now, you may be 20-0 with like 19 knockouts. But the competition is the level of competition is way different. That's then dude goes out there and washes the guy, right? But just to give you perspective, to give you an actual story, you saw the boxer the woman boxer a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
On Showtime. That's what happened. You have this girl who's a champion. She needs a fight. They've been going out looking for people. Let's say I can't remember record. Let's just say 14-0 or like 10 knockouts. Actually, no, I take it back. She was like 8-0. She had like twice as many fights. Anyways, the opponent they bring in, this woman is 4-0 with 4 knockouts. Here's the thing, though. The champion, she's been fighting legit competition. The chick who was 4-0 with 4 knockouts, one of them was she knocked out a chick twice, but these were like 0-1.
Yep.
These were like people who just, they pull it off for sure. Because that's what they were doing boxing. I know for a fact, well, I'm kind of talking in jest, but they'll go find a dude on the block, on the corner. Hey, you want to make like $2,000 real quick? And they're like, yeah, I'll make $2,000 to go box. But these people don't realize what boxing is. They're going to put in there with who's let's say you get a debut guy, right? Who's off the street, debut. They're going to put you in there with a dude who's like a Golden Gloves champion, Olympian. He's like 1-0 with a knockout. But this dude's 1-0. I'm making my debut, but I'm getting $2,000. It's just boxing. And dude goes out there and gets smoked.
Yep.
I've seen it. And then again, you are putting your life on the line. People have died in the cage and in the ring. It's not common, but it has happened.
Yep.
No one has died from playing basketball. You may have died, you may have had a heart attack for some other shit, but people are getting you're dying and punching their face repeatedly.
Yeah. No, and that's it's a different game. It's a survival sport more so than it is anything else, and I think more people need to do that. Well, Mike, I took you way past what I promised I would take you to, but I really I loved it. And I'd love to have you on again in the future.
Sure,
I really appreciate you taking the time. Mike the Truth Jackson. It's MikeTheTruth.com, right?
Yeah, and make sure you on all the social medias at The Truth Jackson, the Twitter, the Instagram, Facebook is Mike The Truth Jackson. I post, and all the platforms are going to give you a little bit different content. Obviously, the Instagram is going to give you the visuals, the dope fire photos that I post. The Facebook is a lot of story. Well, my business page, I post a lot of stories, local fight news, big UFCs, things like that. And then the Twitter is just conversation and dialogue. We get a little spicy on the Twitter, but it's fun, man.
It's all fun. Yeah, no, well, listen, I really appreciate you coming on, Mike. It's been nothing but a pleasure. So looking forward to doing this again.
My God, appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, buddy.